Hello and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to install FlowGuard Gold and Corzan pipe and fittings. Before we can get into the details of installation practices, we want to make sure that you understand what FlowGuard Gold and Corzan are, how it's produced, and how to handle it on a job site. So first, what are FlowGuard Gold and Corzan? They are both specially formulated CPVC compounds that are manufactured by Lubrizol to make pipe and fittings for water distribution systems. CPVC, or chlorinated polyvinyl chloride, is a thermoplastic produced by the chlorination of standard PVC resin. Lubrizol makes and sells this compound to our partners who extrude and mold pipe and fittings. And Lubrizol supports its partners by providing training and education on CPVC piping systems to contractors, engineers, and builders. FlowGuard Gold pipe and fittings are made in copper tube size SDR11, available in 1/2 inch through 2-inch diameters. Corzan pipe and fittings are iron pipe size Schedule 80 and are available from 1/2 inch all the way up to 24 inches. And both systems offer a full line of solvent welded fittings, valves, and transitions. Lubrizol's partners for FlowGuard Gold include Bow, Charlotte Pipe, Corzan for the pipe, and on fittings, Bow, Charlotte Pipe, Nibco, and Sioux Chief. For Corzan, our partners include George Fisher, Ipex, and Charlotte for pipe, and for fittings and transition fittings, Ipex, George Fisher, Nibco, and Sioux Chief. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan both meet several standards. FlowGuard Gold pipe and fittings meet ASTM D2846. Corzan pipe is made to ASTM F441. Corzan fittings are made to ASTM F439 for socket fittings and ASTM F437 for threaded fittings. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan both meet NSF 14 and 61 and are certified for potable water conveyance under all potable water conditions. This is unique because not all materials can say the same thing. Copper does not have an NSF 61 listing at pH values less than 6.5. And at least 8 PEX brands do not have an NSF 61 listing for commercial hot water. In addition, FlowGuard Gold and Corzan are 100% immune to chlorine degradation in water treated with chlorine, chloramines, and chlorine dioxide. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan are both listed for use in return air plenums according to ASTM E84 as follows. 1/2 inch through 2-inch wet and dry FlowGuard Gold are listed for both water distribution and for condensate. Corzan is listed up to 6 inches for water distribution and up to 2 inches for condensate drain. Copies of our listings can be found on the FlowGuard Gold and Corzan websites. Whenever you use a CPVC pipe or fitting, you should verify the brand to ensure that you're using the highest quality of product. For FlowGuard Gold pipe and fittings, check for these markings on the pipe, including the manufacturer's name, such as Bow, Charlotte, or Corzan, along with various other required markings, including the NSF mark, size, ASTM standards, pressure rating, and for use in return air plenums, the ICCES PMG E84 2550 rated marking. Fittings can be a bit more challenging to identify. They all should contain the NSF mark, ASTM D2846, and CPVC 4120. If those markings are listing, it may not comply with all of those required codes and standards. In addition, you'll look for the manufacturer's name, which may be Bow, Charlotte, or Nibco. While fittings are not specifically marked FlowGuard Gold, identifying those manufacturers, Bow, Charlotte, and Nibco, is a way to ensure that you are using FlowGuard Gold fittings. With Corzan pipe and fittings, you'll be looking for the gray Schedule 80 pipe, and it will be marked with the manufacturer's name. It may say GF, it may say Ipex, it may say Charlotte. In addition, the pipe should say the word Corzan on the pipe print line. You'll be looking for the NSF mark, size, ASTM standards, and the pressure ratings at both 73 degrees and 180 degrees. Corzan will say CPVC 412005. With the fittings, again, you'll look for the required codes and standards markings, NSF, ASTM F439, and CPVC 4120. And then you'll also be looking for the manufacturer name on those fittings as well. In this case, it would be GF, IPEX, or NIBCO. When handling and storing FlowGuard Gold and Corzan, bear in mind that UV exposure may cause some discoloration and affect the impact strength of the products. The pressure rating is not affected, but it is important to avoid prolonged direct sunlight exposure in storage. Do not store it unprotected outside, and cover with a non-transparent material to protect from UV exposure. The manufacturer packaging should provide UV protection. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan pipe and fitting should not be dropped, stepped on, dragged, or thrown. Always inspect for splits, cuts, and gouges prior to installation. Keep pipe and fittings in their original packaging until needed, and avoid contamination with petroleum-based products such as cutting or packing oils. Now on to the fun part. Let's talk about joining FlowGuard Gold and Corzan. We'll talk about solvent welding, health and safety, proper solvent, cement, and primer handling and storage. We'll get down into the details of joining FlowGuard Gold and Corzan. We'll talk about transition joints and fittings, and then we'll talk about pressure testing. Solvent welding is an actual weld that chemically fuses the pipe and fitting into a single piece of CPVC. This is not a glue because an actual chemical bond takes place. This all relies on the use of interference fittings. The socket of the fittings is tapered so that the internal diameter at the bottom of the socket is actually smaller than the outside diameter of the pipe. This forces the pipe and fitting together and allows the solvent weld to be completed. When working on a job site, safety always comes first. When working with solvent cements, it's important that you provide adequate ventilation. Most new construction job sites will be well ventilated, but if you have a confined space, use a NIOSH-approved respirator when necessary. Wear proper protective clothing, including gloves and safety goggles while solvent welding. You can refer to ASTM F402 for additional recommendations. When working with solvent cements and primers, there are several things to keep in mind with respect to storage and handling. You'll want to store the products between 40 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or as specified on the label. Do not store solvent cements or primers near heat, sparks, open flames, or other sources of ignition. Remember that the expiration date on the bottom of the can is based on how long the product will remain usable while it sits unopened on a shelf. If the can is left open, the solvents will evaporate and cause the cement to no longer be useful. Keep containers tightly closed when not in use. And while in use, keep the containers as covered as possible. The solvent cement should be free-flowing in the container prior to use. Again, refer to ASTM Practice F402 for additional information on the safe handling of solvent cements. The use of a proper size applicator is extremely important. You will want to use a dauber that is properly sized for the pipe. That means approximately half the size of the pipe's internal diameter. So if you're solvent cementing 1-inch pipe, you'll want to use a 1/2-inch dauber. If you're using 4-inch pipe, you'll want to use a 2-inch dauber. Proper dauber size is very important to prevent puddling and obtain proper coverage. If you apply too much solvent cement, it may cause damage to the system, and if you apply too little solvent cement, the weld may not complete. Using the proper applicator is a critical step in ensuring proper coverage. and cure times are a frequent question that we receive, and they are different properties. The set time is how long the system should be allowed to set prior to being further manipulated. The cure time is the time required after solvent welding before the system can be pressurized. So with set time, it's a question of how long after I assemble the joint do I have to wait before I can move the system around. Cure time is how long do I have to wait before I can put the system into service. Cure times are a function of a variety of factors, including pipe diameter, the type of solvent cement used, temperature, humidity, the degree of interference in the interference fit, and the operating conditions. Each manufacturer of solvent cement publishes a list of recommended set and cure times. Refer to their listings and manufacturer's recommendations for those set and cure time specific to the cement and application that you're using. When solvent welding FlowGuard Gold pipe and fittings, you'll use a one-step solvent cement that's made for use with FlowGuard Gold. Assemble it per ASTM F3328. The solvent cement should meet ASTM F493, and it'll carry the NSF mark, the manufacturer's name and address, and it should be either yellow or green in color. FlowGuard Gold does not require the use of a primer. However, you should always check your local code to ensure that the local code does not specifically require the use of primer on CPVC copper tube size systems. FlowGuard Gold can be solvent welded using a green colored high contrast cement that was approved for CPVC in the 2024 IMC, IPC, UPC, and UMC. It is to be used with copper tube size pipe and fittings such as FlowGuard Gold. And it's green. It's otherwise no different from the standard yellow cement, but the high contrast makes it easier to visually inspect on a job site, reducing the risk of dry fit errors. Just like the yellow, it does not require the use of a primer. Now let's take a look at a short video on how to cut and join FlowGuard Gold CPVC.
Let's look at the process of solvent welding FlowGuard Gold CPVC pipe and fittings using a one-step cement. First, measure and cut the pipe to length with an approved tool or saw. Ensure that the pipe is cut square to ensure proper joining. Utilize an appropriate deburring tool to bevel the outer edge of the pipe. Be sure to wipe debris and moisture away before proceeding. Apply an even layer of cement to the pipe first. Ensure consistent contact and make several rotations with the dauber as needed. Then, repeat the process on the inside of the fitting. Next, insert the pipe into the fitting while turning a quarter turn or approximately 90 degrees. Hold for 30 seconds to allow the joint to take. Wipe excess cement from the outside of the pipe. Installation is simple, easy, and safe. FlowGuard Gold pipe and fittings are the premier choice of contractors worldwide. For more information, go to flowguardgold.com.
When solvent welding Corzan pipe and fittings, it does require the use of both primer and solvent cement. The primer is needed to prepare the bonding area for the addition of cement. You'll want to assemble it per ASTM D2855. The primer will meet ASTM F656 requirements, will carry the NSF mark, and may be purple or clear in color. Always check your local code requirements for required colors in your jurisdiction. Solvent cement will meet ASTM F493 and will carry the NSF mark, and will typically be orange in color per the code. Gray cements are available, but are not typically used for potable water systems.
Let's look at the process of solvent welding Corzan CPVC pipe and fittings. First, measure and cut the pipe to length with an approved tool or saw. Ensure that the pipe is cut square to ensure proper joining. Utilize an appropriate deburring tool to bevel the outer edge of the pipe. Be sure to wipe debris and moisture away before proceeding any further. With Corzan pipe and fittings, you must utilize a primer in the solvent weld process. Apply an even coat to the inside of the fitting. Use pressure to aggressively coat the surface and re-dip your dauber as needed. Then apply an even coat of primer in the same manner to the outside surface of the pipe. Once again, prime the surface on the inside of the fitting. While the surface of both the fitting and pipe are still tacky, proceed with the solvent cement application. First, apply an even layer of cement to the pipe. Ensure consistent contact and make several rotations with the dauber as needed. Next, repeat the solvent cement process on the inside of the fitting. Then, add a second coat of solvent cement to the pipe's surface. Insert the pipe into the fitting while turning a quarter turn or approximately 90 degrees when possible. Hold for 30 seconds to allow the joint to take. Finally, wipe excess cement from the outside of the pipe. Installation is simple, easy, and safe. Corzan pipe and fittings are the premier choice of contractors worldwide. For more information, go to Corzan.com.
When working with large diameter Corzan, say above 6 inches, a pipe puller, also known as a come-along, is recommended to assemble the joint and hold it in place for the initial set time. The equipment should be set up prior to the start of priming, so that the assembly can happen quickly while the primer and cement are still fluid. With both FlowGuard Gold and Corzan, there are a few things to remember. Always chamfer the pipe. Always cut the pipe straight, and push the pipe the entire way into the fitting. Hold the system together for the entire recommended set time, and when possible, perform a quarter turn while the pipe is being inserted. 80% of the joint strength comes from the bottom third of the fitting socket, which is why it's important to cut the pipe straight and push it the entire way into the fitting. There are a few common mistakes that are easy to avoid. Walk the job afterwards to check for dry fits. And if you're using FlowGuard Gold, use the green high contrast cement to help visually identify joints that may have been missed. Try to align the print line while installing your pipe, or you can sign joints to ensure visual inspection by the installer. Be aware of push-out on large diameter Corzan. Because of that interference fit and the liquid of the solvent cement, it is possible for the pipe to back out from the fitting after being inserted. This is why on large diameters it's recommended to use a pipe puller or come-along. Make sure the pipe is inserted all the way into the fitting. And avoid excessive cement in the fittings to avoid puddling. It can be difficult to put too much cement on the pipe, but it can be comparatively easy to put too much cement in the fitting. Always make sure that there's not excessive cement inside the fitting socket. For Corzan, you can mechanically join the systems at diameters from 2-inch up to 12-inch. These systems are installed using cut groove joints, which can be made utilizing the Victaulic PGS 300 rounded profile cut groove with Victaulic couplings, or the OGS or original groove style cut groove and the appropriate couplings recommended by that manufacturer. There are multiple grooving tools available, including the Victaulic PGS 300 groove profile, and Wheeler Rex provides an OGS groove profile. When using mechanical joints, the system can be pressurized immediately. Corzan can also be joined using flanged connections. Corzan flanged connections are rated for 150 psi maximum. Use full face gaskets, which are chemically compatible with the Corzan material. Use washers on all nuts and bolts, and follow the manufacturer's torque requirements. If needed, high-pressure flange kits are available from 2-inch to 6-inch to bring a flanged connection up to the full rating of the pipe. In hotels, apartment buildings, and other larger residential type buildings, it is not uncommon to use Corzan and FlowGuard Gold together to make a complete system. If you are using a copper tube size system in conjunction with Corzan Schedule 80 CPVC, FlowGuard Gold should be the pipe used for small diameter to ensure that you're getting the same high quality performance of Lubrizol CPVC at all diameters. When joining FlowGuard Gold CPVC to Corzan CPVC using a solvent welded joint, an IPS to CTS transition bushing will be required. Primer and orange two-step solvent cement will be used to weld the bushing into the Corzan fitting. One-step cement can be used to solvent weld the FlowGuard Gold pipe into the bushing. A good way to remember this is any time that there is a gray component receiving solvent cement, it requires a primer. If you are connecting the tan pipe to a tan bushing, no primer is required. There are a number of transition fittings available for FlowGuard Gold and Corzan when you need to convert to another material. Those include solvent weld by metal and threaded for both FlowGuard Gold and Corzan. And for Corzan, you can use grooved or flanged connections. Be sure to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for temperature and pressure limitations on threaded adapters. A number of common accessories, including washing machine outlet box valves, water hammer arresters, and shower valves, are available. Additional support should be added to the metal side of a transition fitting where applicable to handle the additional weight added by the metallic component. When using threaded connections with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan, always refer to the manufacturer's temperature and pressure limitations. Take care not to over-torque CPVC threaded fittings. The thread can be made of either plastic or metal, resulting in 4 possible combinations. However, due to the stresses from torque and thermal expansion, make sure to follow these guidelines. You can use a metal male to metal female thread or a plastic male to plastic female thread under all conditions. However, plastic male to metal female should only be used in cold water applications, and you should never use a metal male to plastic female connection. There are a variety of valves available for use with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan CPVC. They may be made out of CPVC or metal. There's a variety of connection methods available as well. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan CPVC valves can be connected with solvent cement. Metallic valves may be connected with threaded adapters or, in the case of Corzan, with flanges. Make sure that the hangers are in place to support the additional weight added by the valve, especially when using a metallic valve. The system should not be pressure tested until the minimum cure times have been met. Make sure to fill the system with water and bleed air from the highest point. Pressure test in accordance with local code requirements and manufacturer recommendations. Repair any leaks, cure, and retest. It is not recommended to use compressed air or inert gas for testing under any situation. Now let's talk about some common system design and installation considerations, ranging from temperature and pressure ratings, hangers and supports, thermal expansion and contraction, deflection, and freeze protection. FlowGuard Gold copper tube size pipe and fittings are an SDR11 system, meaning that they have a continuous working pressure across all sizes. For FlowGuard Gold, that is 100 psi at 180 degrees Fahrenheit and 400 psi at 73 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see in the chart below the linear relationship. As temperature increases, the pressure rating will decrease. Corzan Schedule 80 pipe and fittings are an iron pipe size schedule system. Because of this, the pressure rating of the pipe will not only decrease as the operating temperature increases, but it will also vary by size. To obtain the pressure rating at room temperature, multiply the pressure rating at 73 degrees Fahrenheit by the appropriate derating factor. So as an example, for a 3-inch Corzan pipe at 140 degrees, you'll begin by taking the pressure rating of 3-inch pipe at 73 degrees, which according to the first table is 370 psi. Then you'll multiply it by the derating factor at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is shown as 0.5. 370 psi times 0.5 equals 185 psi, which will be the pressure rating for 3-inch Corzan at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Corzan CPVC Schedule 80 pipe up to and including 4-inch diameter and at an operating temperature of 130 degrees Fahrenheit or less may be threaded. Note that threaded joints are derated to 50% of the pressure rating of the pipe at the operating temperature. Make sure to consult your pipe and fitting manufacturers for additional limitations. When it comes to supporting the piping should not be anchored tightly to supports. This will restrict the natural expansion and contraction of the pipe and may damage the system. Use hangers and straps that do not distort, cut, or abrade the piping. And do not allow rough or sharp edges to come into contact with the pipe, which may damage the pipe's exterior. When going through metal studs, the pipe must be protected, and concentrated loads, such as valves, must be separately supported. It is extremely important to allow for natural movement due to thermal expansion and contraction. Do not over-clamp the pipe. If it is overstressed, you can see in these photos, the pipe is actually slightly bent towards the wall that it is anchored to. That introduces stress to the pipe, which is then compounded by thermal expansion and contraction, which can result in an eventual pipe failure. When running the pipe through metal studs, use a grommet to protect the pipe from abrasion. And always verify your hanger spacing with your local code official prior to installation. Code officials may vary in their hanger spacing requirements. Some will follow the specific wording of the code. Some will adhere to manufacturer's recommendations. For FlowGuard Gold, the hanger support spacing is shown in the table below. At lower temperatures, hanger spacing of 4 feet for 1/2 inch, 4.5 to 5 feet for 3/4, 5 to 5.5 feet for 1 inch, and so on is acceptable. For hot water systems, you'll want to use slightly more frequent hanger spacing. Of course, if the local code requires a specific, more conservative spacing, always follow that requirement. Corzan's hanger and support spacing is shown here. Again, you can see that as temperature increases, that hanger spacing gets closer together. And as the size increases, the hanger spacing gets farther apart. A common question we receive is about how to properly support hot water risers that are running vertically. Vertical runs of pipe should be supported by riser clamps at the floor and ceiling of the odd-numbered floors, with single riser clamps at the floor on even-number floors, as shown in the diagram. For pipes 2 inches and smaller, a mid-story guide should be used on each floor. This is a common vertical installation practice under typical conditions. If you have a specific application, you may want to consult a design professional to evaluate the suitability for that specific circumstance. Riser clamps should not distort or abrade the piping and should be installed in accordance with the riser clamp manufacturer's instructions and should not be over-tightened, which can damage the pipe. For cold water riser applications, support the riser per local code, which is typically every floor or every 10 feet. All piping materials expand and contract with temperature change. CPVC will expand about 1 inch per 50 feet of length when subjected to a 50-degree temperature increase. The expansion does not vary with pipe size. Expansion is mainly a concern on hot water lines, but should not be ignored in cold lines. And the stresses are less than with metal systems, and in most cases can be accommodated with a simple change in direction. The expansion loop requirements are smaller than those recommended for copper. And when properly sized, only one loop is required. It is important to note that when you're determining how much temperature change a system will experience, it must be calculated relative to the temperature at the time of installation. For example, if you're installing a hot water system that will operate at 140 degrees Fahrenheit on a temperature day where it is 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, that is a 100-degree temperature change. Likewise, if you're installing a cold water system that will operate at 60 degrees Fahrenheit on a 120-degree day, you will have a 60-degree temperature change in that system. However, in that circumstance, the pipe will contract as it cools down. You can see here there's 3 common ways to account for expansion and contraction. An expansion loop, which allows for the free movement of the pipe on the lower branches while being fixed with a restraint in the middle of the loop. A change of direction, which allows for linear expansion as long as the elbow is given enough room to move between its natural position and a wall or stud. And an offset, which allows the entire assembly to move in the offset direction. Generally speaking, expansion can be accommodated with changes in direction. However, in larger buildings that require long straight runs, an offset or loop may be required. One properly sized expansion loop is all that is required on any single straight run. 2 or more smaller expansion loops, properly sized, can be utilized in a single straight run of pipe if there's not enough room to put in a single larger expansion loop. Hang the pipe with smooth straps that will not restrict movement. And do not butt up any portion of the system that is intended to expand against a fixed structure, such as a joist, a stud, or a wall. The expansion loop calculation takes into consideration a variety of factors, where you're determining the loop length based off of material properties such as the modulus of elasticity and the outside diameter of the pipe, along with the working stress at the maximum temperature and the change in length due to the temperature. You do not need to know how to do this math. There are a variety of digital tools available to help you. Corzan and FlowGuard Gold offer a desktop calculator that is linked on both the Corzan and FlowGuard Gold website. Charlotte Pipe offers a Tech Tools app, which contains a calculator. And the Plastics Pipe Institute also provides a design calculator, all of which can be used to calculate thermal expansion loops. Now let's look at an example. For an 80-foot straight run of Corzan CPVC that's being installed for hot water distribution on a 50-degree day, the water temperature running through the pipe will be 140 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the expected amount of thermal growth of the pipe? Well, we take the factors relative to the piping, calculate it for a 90-degree temperature change, and it results in approximately 2.9 inches of thermal growth in the pipe. That thermal expansion can now be used to calculate the loop length using the equation from the previous page. The expansion loop length is going to be about 80 inches or 6 foot 8 inches. Expansion loops can be nested as shown below, and they can even be dropped down below other obstructions. As you can see in this photo, the main run of pipe is closer to that deck. It is teed off at an approximately 45-degree angle, dropping down, and then the loop is completed in accordance with the calculations. This will work just fine as long as the loop is properly designed and installed. Let's change gears and talk about deflection in FlowGuard Gold systems. FlowGuard Gold CPVC is inherently ductile, allowing it to be deflected around or away from obstructions during the installation. This allows for greater ease and forgiveness on the job site where holes may not be drilled in exactly a straight line, or there may be some minor obstructions on the job site. It is important that you do not install the fittings under stress. The piping must be properly restrained so that stress from the deflected pipe is not transmitted to the fitting. The maximum installed deflection for FlowGuard Gold pipe can be seen on the following slide. In a situation where one end of the pipe is restrained, meaning that one end is stationary and the other end is deflected off of that point, at room temperature, half-inch pipe on a 10-foot run can be deflected up to 52.6 inches. The longer the run of pipe, the more deflection you'll be able to accomplish. If the system is restrained on both ends, meaning that at both ends of the pipe it comes back to the neutral position, the deflection is considerably lower. On a 10-foot length of pipe, half-inch FlowGuard Gold can be deflected 13.2 inches. Thanks to this ductility, FlowGuard Gold is also available as a coiled pipe at half-inch, 3/4, and 1-inch diameters to help eliminate the need for joints when going under slab in areas that restrict joints under slab. When turning the end of coiled pipe up through the slab into a wall, care should be taken not to kink the pipe. The minimum radius imposed on half and 3/4 inch coiled pipe is 18 inches, and the minimum radius imposed on 1-inch pipe is 24 inches. If the pipe is bent more tightly than that minimum radius, the strain on the tube will cause it to deform, which may result in kinking or eventual failure. We commonly receive questions about freeze protection with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan systems. The model plumbing codes require that piping exposed to freezing temperatures be properly protected. However, if a pipe does freeze, first eliminate the source of air causing the freezing condition. Locate the frozen section and thaw the water line if possible. Make sure to seal any outside openings with insulation and circulate warm air into the area, or direct heated air onto the piping using a low wattage heater or blower. Once the ice plug has melted, check to see if any pipe or fitting has been damaged by the freeze condition, and make the necessary repairs. Insulate the area and or the pipe to prevent future freezing. Do not use an open flame to heat the frozen pipe. I want to note here that all piping materials are subject to freezing conditions, and all piping materials can and will burst when frozen under the wrong conditions. There are no freeze-proof materials. There are no freeze-resistant materials. FlowGuard Gold and Corzan will be as durable as any other product over the long term when subjected to frozen conditions. Another common question we receive is about the UV performance of Corzan systems. Corzan CPVC is gray because it contains carbon black and titanium dioxide for UV protection. Because of this, Corzan piping does not require additional protection from UV rays when installed outdoors. You may see some discoloration on the piping exterior over time, but this does not affect the temperature or pressure bearing capability of the pipe. This is a huge advantage for systems where the piping must be installed outdoors, exposed to the sun. When the outside temperature is 100 degrees, the surface temperature when exposed to direct sunlight can get significantly higher. Corzan CPVC has a higher temperature and pressure rating and UV resistance that will allow the product to perform more reliably in outdoor installations. Lastly, I'd like to talk about chemical compatibility and the issues and opportunities that this presents with respect to a FlowGuard Gold and Corzan piping system. While FlowGuard Gold and Corzan CPVC are chemically resistant to a wide array of chemicals that may be found in industrial applications and potable water systems, including chlorinated water, CPVC can be damaged by contact with chemicals found in certain other construction products, such as edible oils, petroleum or solvent-based sealants, lubricants or fire-stop materials, or glycol-based antifreeze. You can reference www.fbcsystemcompatible.com for a complete list of products that are known to be compatible and incompatible. Note that the FBC System Compatible program is only applicable to the chemical compatibility of ancillary products with the FlowGuard Gold, BlazeMaster, and Corzan piping systems brands. The FBC System Compatible program is designed to test the chemical compatibility of ancillary products with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan pipe and fittings. Always look for the FBC System Compatible logo on ancillary product labels or packaging. It's actively used around the world, but again, it is only applicable to the brands of FlowGuard Gold, BlazeMaster, and Corzan. The FBC System Compatible program should not be applied to products that are not made from Lubrizol CPVC.
The FBC System Compatible program is a fast, easy way to make sure that ancillary products used with Lubrizol CPVC piping systems are compatible. This is exclusive to Lubrizol branded products and no other CPVC manufacturer. This innovative resource, the only one of its kind in the industry, eliminates the guesswork by introducing third-party testing, listing within the program, and unique product labeling to clearly identify compatible products. As a result, the FBC System Compatible program eases the burden on contractors, installers, and engineers of researching and selecting construction products. This program is voluntary, and all our participating partners are making a commitment to working with Lubrizol. They agree to being tested to determine whether a product is chemically compatible with our FlowGuard, BlazeMaster, and Corzan CPVC piping systems material. To maintain their status in the program, manufacturers must also meet annual audit requirements, agree not to alter or change the formulation without reconfirming compatibility, and place a required logo on their product to identify it as compatible. The FBC System Compatible program saves time and, by building awareness, provides our customers with reassurance and confidence on every job. The program listing is available for quick reference through a number of easily accessed sources. You can always check our website or our easy-to-use mobile app for the most up-to-date list of compatible products. If the material in question is not listed by name, first contact the manufacturer of the product. If you still need assistance, contact a Lubrizol piping system consultant. For more information on compatibility and the FBC System Compatible program, click any of the modules from the main menu, or visit us at fbcsystemcompatible.com.
One area where chemical compatibility concerns should be addressed on a job site is when penetrating fire-rated walls, floors, and ceilings. The building codes require that fire-rated walls be returned to their original rating when penetrated by pipes. These penetrations must be protected with an approved fire stop system. There are several fire stop systems that are listed for use with CPVC. The manufacturers of those materials or systems are responsible for maintaining their own listings as a fire stop material. It is critical to verify that the fire stop is chemically compatible with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan pipe and fittings prior to use. This can be done by visiting www.fbcsystemcompatible.com or by looking for the FBC System Compatible logo on either the product packaging or its technical documentation. If you're still not sure, contact the manufacturer of the ancillary building product to confirm compatibility with FlowGuard Gold and Corzan CPVC. Thank you for participating in this installation training webinar. We appreciate your time and consideration and your use of FlowGuard Gold and Corzan plumbing systems in your next project.